T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Global Watchman News, exposing satanic world government. My name is Lori Swan, and tonight this evening, whatever, we're gonna bring you a live interview with a gentleman, a very interesting gentleman by the name of John McAfee. Now, some of you may know who John McAfee is. If not, I'm going to give you just a brief summary of who he is. Here's a picture of John. John McAfee is an English-American-born computer and businessman. He founded the software company McAfee Associates in 1987 and ran it until around 1994 when he resigned from the company. McAfee Associates achieved early success as the creator of McAfee's first commercial antivirus software, and the business now produces a range of enterprise security software. The company was purchased by Intel in 2011, though it still bears the McAfee brand name. McAfee's wealth peaked in 2007 at $100 million before his investment plummeted in the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. Since leaving McAfee Associates, he has founded the company's Tribal Voice, makers of Powwow chat program, Quorum X in Future Tense Central, among others, and he's been involved in leadership positions in companies Everkey, MGT Capital Investments, and LuxCorp, just to name a few. McAfee is also a political activist. He's unsuccessfully sought the Libertarian Party nomination for President of the United States in 2016 and in 2020. And recently, on October 20th, 2020, McAfee was arrested in Spain over tax evasion charges. Charges were announced shortly after the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission revealed that it had brought civil charges against McAfee and that he could face 30 years in prison if convicted. Now, when this whole the whole thing about Epstein's Island first started back in 2018, I believe, 19. There was a YouTuber who was flying drones over Epstein's Island, and that YouTuber's name was Rusty Shackelford. And a lot of people speculated that McAfee was indeed this person, this YouTuber, Rusty Shackelford. It hasn't been confirmed, though it has not been denied. I do happen to have a mutual friend of Mr. McAfee here. If you guys have been following this channel for any length of time, when we were talking about Epstein and we were talking about Isaac Cappy and his death, I had a friend of mine on with me. Her name was Linda. Now, since that time, Linda has moved. She's down in another part of the country where she travels around quite extensively on the water, and has come across Mr. McAfee and befriended him, and been shown a side of Mr. McAfee that is quite, let's just say, disturbing. Okay, we'll leave it at that. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to go over here. We're going to play this interview that's going on right now with John McAfee, and we'll see if he gives us any insight into what's going on with him. Give me just a minute here. Let me gear it up because it just started live here. And all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to mute out, and we'll play it.
And welcome to Beyond Belief. I'm George Knorr. You know, practically every computer we have has a antivirus system on it called McAfee. Well, the McAfee is sitting right next to me, John McAfee. John, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thank you, George. I'm very glad to be here, sir.
Good to see you indeed. What an incredible career you have had.
Well, it's had some ups and downs and certainly a lot of tangents, and it's been a wild ride for me. I've enjoyed it.
When you started off, were you into computers as a kid? Did they have computers?
When I was a kid, they didn't have computers, George. Actually, one of the first computers ever made was a computer made by General Electric called the GPAC, and it was used for process automation. I was fortunate enough to get a job with General Electric the first year that they came out. There was no software engineering at the time. There were no programs in school.
Amazing.
And General Electric did their own education program. So I went through a very intensive software engineering school at GE. This is while I was in grad school.
Learning as you went along.
As I went along, and I've been in computers ever since.
Now, at what point in your career did you start dabbling in the software with the antivirus? Because, I mean, who would even know there was a virus to defend at that time?
Well, I didn't, to be quite frank with you. A virus was discovered in 1986 called the Pakistani brain. It was the world's first computer virus.
Developed
by two brothers in Lahore, Pakistan. An odd place for such technology to come from, but no one had conceived of the concept of a program that could replicate itself and move. And that's what a computer virus is. It's a piece of software that acts like a bacteria or a virus.
Now, what did they want to do with the virus? I mean, each virus has a plan, right?
None of them are good. The Lahore brothers wrote into the programs a procedure to wipe out everything on the hard disk. They thought it was fun. and funny. It was
little
not
game.
It was a game. It was not funny to the people who caught the virus. Anyway, when I first heard of it, which was about a day after it was first discovered, I called a friend, got a copy, took a look at it, and suddenly I saw how they did it, and I go, wow, what an incredibly beautiful technique, because it was in terms of software engineering, it was beautifully engineered. No one had ever conceived of the concept before, and at the same time I saw how it was done, I saw, aha, well, this is how you can stop this or cure this. And I wrote a little program, put it out on, we didn't have the internet then, we had bulletin board systems.
Okay.
And, within a month, everyone in the world had a copy of the program, and the rest is history.
And it was fighting that virus.
It got rid of that virus, yes.
That is amazing. And at what point did you decide to form the company, McAfee?
Well, it was when the next virus came out. It was a virus called the Jerusalem.
They keep coming.
They keep coming, and also from the same part of the world. The second one was a Jerusalem virus, and it was a very odd little thing. This is before we had Windows, and everything was text on the monitor. It made all the letters fall into a jumble at the bottom of your screen. Another very interesting virus. So at that time, everyone had downloaded my program for the brain. It took about 2 days, and I wrote another program for the Jerusalem. And at that point, I knew that the world needed this, because this is not going to stop.
No,
it's not going to stop, and it doesn't, and it hasn't. There are thousands and thousands of viruses that have been written in the interim.
John, is it a virus person versus an antivirus person every other day? Because I notice I'm getting updates almost every other day and stuff like that.
It is. In fact, there's almost an unofficial war going on between, if you want to call them, the good guys and the bad guys, depending on which side you happen to be on, right? Keep in mind, many of the virus writers have political agendas.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that there's some slight or some wrong in some world government that they're trying to redress, by bringing down the central computer systems or what have you. On the other side, we look at them as vandals because they're destroying our work. So there's a war going on.
To create a virus to, let's say, shut down the power grid, that's being worked on now, I think, by rogue nations, isn't it?
Of course,
and
absolutely.
we're probably doing it too.
Well, if we aren't, I would be very surprised, George. Of course, and what happened is the ante has been upped. If you take a couple of lone hackers in Pakistan or Russia or where have you, they can only do so much damage, even though the damage they can do is still great. If you take a government with all of its resources and money and technical capabilities, what will come out will be horrible beyond belief.
Do you ever see the day where another country would shut down the satellite systems, the computers, and everything of a country they're going after?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it would be done by countries like China or possibly Russia that go way beyond the technical aspect of viruses and computer crime, and they have married it with the science of human engineering. Okay, and human engineering is merely the science of taking people and going, this is how they're going to behave in a certain condition. They'll watch you. Let's say we want to put a virus in George Norrie's computer. How would we do it? Well, I would watch you for a while.
Learn.
I would see what your habits are, what sort of food you ate. Are you a curious man or you're not a curious man? If you're curious, for example, right? If you're a curious man, I would take a thumb drive and drop it in front of your car with a little label on it. And let's say your favorite thing is flying saucers, and I would say flying saucer research, little label. I guarantee you're going to put that in your computer.
That's right.
As soon as you do, I own your computer.
It's got me.
It's got you. Now, this is a very simple example. You can imagine how more complex and subtle examples would be impossible to circumvent. So this is how they're getting in. It's not by trying to solve or unravel our encryptions or to bypass some firewall. No, it's to find a secretary somewhere with access to the system and compromising her own computer. This is how it happens.
I've got a personal email, and I use Yahoo.
Yes.
I noticed a couple days ago I had an email from me with some trashy stuff on it. I didn't send it, but it clearly had my email address.
Absolutely.
What happened?
Okay, this is a very common thing. Okay, sometimes it's malicious. Sometimes there's a business reason behind it. What happened is you got onto a website and downloaded a cookie, which transferred your entire contact list to someone, a hacker. that contact list. Now he knows your email address and all of your contacts, and you are also in that contact
That's
list
right.
as yourself. Then everybody's going to get an email. Now maybe it'll be an email saying something like, "Gosh, I tried this new diet, and I lost 30 pounds."
And they think it's from me.
And they think it's from you. And we trust you, so we go, "Well, gosh, I'm going to go out and buy it now." And there's a link at the bottom of the page to order it for $99.95. That's one example. Or maybe they're just malicious people and they enjoy making your day, a miserable day. And so they send dirty pictures to all of your friends with your name attached.
To my network people,
To your network people and so on. And so it's happened to a lot of my friends.
How did they get that? How did they get the ability to use my email address?
Because here's the issue, George. You run applications and you access websites that store on your computer programs. This is the way the world's working now, and it's very dangerous. These programs have the ability to contact the owner or the person who wrote the program.
Okay.
So it goes into your drive because it's running on your computer. It can access whatever it wants, gets your contact list, and sends it home.
Now,
It's-
outside of dumping my Yahoo address, how do I fight that personally? Do I change my password?
Well,
What happens?
what you have to do is be more cautious. Let me give you an
I
example.
need John McAfee over on my computer. So
Right.
that's
Well,
what I need.
you don't need my software, but you maybe need just some little advice. For example, you have a smartphone,
Yes.
an iPhone or an Android.
Android.
An Android. Okay. Now, I recommend that you go and download the Bank of America banking application. Whether or not you have an account doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And you install it. It's an app that runs on your smartphone.
Right.
And instead of just saying, "I agree to all the terms and conditions," which we all do, read them. Specifically the one referencing
I've never read any of them.
Let me tell you why you need to, George. Look at the one that says camera. Okay.
Okay.
And it will say, "By agreeing to these terms, you give the Bank of America application the right to access your camera and microphone at any time without us having to notify you that we're doing it now."
While that phone's on.
While that phone is on, at any point, they can turn on the camera and look at you or whatever your camera is pointing at. If you have a front and back, they can choose which one to go to.
Unbelievable.
Why do they do that? It's very obvious. Think about it. I have a Bank of America account, and I do banking applications on my smartphone. I'm having rough times. I empty my account and then call the bank and say, "I didn't do it."
Right.
The bank goes, "Well, it sure looks like you. We have a picture of you actually doing it, and we've got the
We
sound of your
gotcha. Yeah.
We've got you." So you can see why. However, it spooks me out, George, because if the Bank of America can do it, anybody can. And you will find that over half of the
Amazing.
applications that you are running, you have given them the right to either turn on the microphone whenever they want, or the camera, or both. Why? Think about why. I mean,
Unbelievable.
if
There's too
I'm a
many.
Russian
look
spy,
at the NSA. Look what they're
Pardon?
doing. Look what the NSA's doing.
absolutely, but it doesn't even need to be the NSA. We're giving the world the right to spy on us by our blind acceptance of terms and conditions, which
and
we don't bother to read.
Nobody reads it. Nobody reads
You need
it.
to start, and the world needs to start, because otherwise we're going to have some serious problems.
Unbelievable.
So try it out. This will be proof in the pudding. Get the application on the Android. Click on terms, because you can read them if you want, and it'll tell you right back, "Yes, you're giving us the right, and we don't have to tell you when we're doing it."
Are we too technologically advanced these days, John?
Yes, because
Way
we're
too much.
we're more technologically advanced than our custom and conditioning allows. The world is going to change radically over the next few years, and not to our benefit. Somebody who's very smart, very powerful, is going to take all of these capabilities, and suddenly we're going to be puppets on a string.
Let's talk a little bit about your company, about some of the bizarre things that have happened to you in your life.
Yes.
So you have McAfee software, antivirus. The
Yes.
company grows.
Mm.
What happens? You sell out, or somebody buys you that way? What happens?
What happened is, I think if you look at the early days of McAfee, we were the fastest growing company in the world ever recorded. Why? I didn't have a sales force.
Privately held at that time, right?
It was privately held for 2 years, and I took it public and then ran it for 2 more years.
Okay.
But even privately and publicly, it was the fastest growing company. Our profit margins pre-tax were 96%. Unheard of. Huge. Why? We didn't have a sales force. We didn't have a marketing force. All we had were people who took orders on the phone and the staff that wrote the software. It was a completely new approach to business. We didn't put out discs or paper or anything. The software was downloaded from our system, and
you
we
made
gave
money.
it away for free.
Yeah.
If you wanted to keep it, if you wanted updates, you told us and you signed up for updates, which we charged you by the month for.
That's how you made the money.
That's how we made the money. And the first year there were 4 employees, and we had $11 million in revenue. And that just kept going up. So it was a lot of fun because it was high technology, and it was things that I truly enjoyed, and working with companies directly on infections that they would get and solving their security issues. After 4 years, we had thousands of employees. We had personnel issues. I had stockholders. I had board of directors meetings.
And you're an entrepreneur.
And I'm an
Entrepreneurs
entrepreneur.
don't like that stuff.
No,
right?
it was a nightmare. I dreaded getting up and going to work in the morning. I'm sitting at a table, some long mahogany table, and everybody's got these stuffy suits on and stern looks. And I'm explaining why our margins are up 1% or
And
down
they don't
another.
get it.
And they don't get it.
They don't.
Everybody's interested in the short term. Well, what about this quarter's earnings? Well, who cares? I'm worrying about our earnings 3 years from now,
Right.
because we have to survive. The American business environment is so focused on the now. I want my returns today. The rest of the world is looking at 20 years from now.
That's right. China
It's like China.
that. Yeah.
That's why it's hard to compete with China if we're worried about today. So after a couple of years after going public, I go, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm not.
I want out.
I want out, and they didn't want me out. And so
Well, you were the company.
I hired a guy named Bill Larson, who was the senior vice president at IBM. Very, very gung-ho, go-getter, brilliant guy. Bought him in, made him the COO, stayed with him for 6 months. The board loved him. Everybody loved him. And then I said, goodbye.
I'm out of here.
I'm outta
Did
here.
you sell your stock and get out, or
I did, because if I kept my stock, then I'd end up still coming to board
you'd
meetings.
be part
I'd
of
be,
the company
I said,
store?
I want to cut the strings.
Okay.
And I went off and immediately formed another company called Tribal Voice, where we did the first instant messaging system.
You have the Midas touch when it comes to this.
Apparently.
Touch me, would you? There we go. So you get bought out. You sell your stock.
Yes.
And McAfee subsequently gets purchased by Intel. What happened there?
They were purchased by Intel for $8 billion, I think.
How much?
$8 billion.
$8 billion from a little tiny company.
A little tiny company to $8 billion. Well, again, it's a fast-growing field, and software security and information security is really the crux of everything. Without the security, we lose everything. I mean, think about it. If there were no software protections, firewalls, antivirus software, you couldn't run your computer for more than 5 minutes before it crashed.
Jeez.
So it's an extremely important part of this entire information process. But in any case, I started Tribal Voice, which was an instant messaging company. And then the same thing happened,
Brilliant.
only much quicker. Okay, so I sold out after 18 months for, I think, 17 million, and went off
Good for you.
and formed another company. And so I'm afraid that's the only thing I'm good for, is starting things,
selling, and
starting
getting out.
and selling and just getting out.
What do you
Because,
think of the Facebook boys?
well, I think
Zuckerberg
Facebook
and
is
those
spectacular. I mean, as a social tool, I personally don't spend much time on Facebook. I prefer to do FaceTime with
Yeah.
real people. I think this is one of the problems in the world today, by the way. Our technology has isolated us from human communion.
So true.
We go into places and people are just looking at their smartphones and they're texting and
I saw a couple of 4 people go to dinner.
Right.
Not one of them, John,
looked
at each other.
That's right.
They're just on their phones.
And they're texting. They could be texting each other for all I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
They don't know how to talk with each other.
or they use it for, I don't know, it could be the man texting the other man's wife, I will meet you after. You don't have a
You never
clue.
know.
But it's not comfortable. It's not a comfortable image in my mind of the direction that humanity is taking, given what we're doing with that technology. Now, we could use technology totally differently, if we had more wisdom, and more courage. But I fear that if it continues in this way, we're going to have remote sex, remote everything.
Remote everything.
Remote
That's
everything.
true.
And we're going to think we live in an absolute heaven of reality, but it will collapse around us at some point. reality will intrude no matter what we do.
Are some of these .com companies fad companies like Twitter? And, we saw what Facebook did to MySpace.
Right.
Will there always be a new evolution? I mean, now
Of course.
Snapchat and
Of course.
Instagram, they
there
keep
will always
coming.
be an evolution because there is no end to technological growth. There is no end to human imagination.
Right.
And the imagination, the image of Twitter, for example, which occurred to the founders, wow, what a great concept. Believe me, there will be a greater concept and a greater concept.
How do they monetize that?
Pardon?
How do they monetize
There's the question. Twitter went public 2 days ago, 3 days
a
ago.
couple days ago, yeah.
It came out at a price of $26 and opened instantly at $45.
With minimal earnings, right?
No earnings, to my knowledge.
No earnings.
I don't think they're making any money. However, anything
Amazing.
that the world has to use, believe me, you will find a way to make money. And this is why the people
Eventually.
are investing.
Yeah.
So that was astonishing. So in 30 seconds, people got 90% on their investment.
Just crazy.
Isn't it?
Just crazy. So John McAfee then sells out. You've got your funds. You go to Belize.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you go there?
A couple of reasons. It's the most beautiful country in the world physically, or geographically.
Yeah.
Has the world's second longest barrier reef. Beautiful, crystal clear, emerald waters on the inside of the reef. Very calm. It's the only place in the world where you can have a dock in front of your house right on the ocean.
Had you vacation there before? and
Oh
then you
yeah,
fell in
many
love with the
times. It's a
place?
great vacation spot,
Yeah.
a great snorkeling and diving spot, one of the greatest in the world. And then the jungles. Whoa. I had a place in Ecuador, and I've been down the Amazon. Nothing like the rivers of Belize. Nothing like the rivers of Belize. Lined with crocodiles and storks and howler monkeys and spider monkeys and every manner of
Gorgeous.
wildlife. Beautiful. And more importantly, the plants. There are 2,700 species of plants along the jungle rivers in Belize, meaning they're easy to collect.
Yes.
And while companies like Merck and Bayer, the large pharmaceuticals, have tested all of them, they've only tested them against specific things, like does it kill bacteria? Yes or no? If it doesn't, throw it away. I retested these things. Not does it kill bacteria, but does it interrupt the communication between
Possible
bacteria?
another company at that
Pardon?
time? Another company you were
It was
gonna form?
QuorumX. I founded a company called QuorumX, and I hired some PhD chemists and biologists and a lot of local people to collect plants and grind them and extract. And I was having a great old time until the Army came in and shut me down.
Yeah, they came in and tried to extort you.
Well, the Army didn't. There was a politician who tried to extort me. I said no, and well, the politicians own the Army, so they sent 42 soldiers in riot gear, shot my dog in front of my eyes, destroyed my laboratory, kept me handcuffed in the sun for 14 hours with my hands behind my
scared?
back. No, I was pissed off, George.
I don't blame you.
No, I wasn't scared at all. I was
blame you.
angry. And then they left. Politician came back a week later after I got everything cleaned up and said, gosh, I was so sorry to hear about what happened to you. Said, what a mistake that was. I said, they must have been looking for somebody else. And by the way, have you reconsidered your donation? I said, absolutely not.
Donation, they call
Right.
it. Huh?
Well, a donation. They didn't say, give me the money. I said, why don't you donate to my campaign? And when I get elected, I'll give you all of these lands and tax breaks. And not interested. Thank you. So instead of giving him the money, I called the international press. I called the Wall Street Journal first. I said, I haven't talked to you guys in 5 years. I have a story for you.
And they knew who you were.
Of
Right?
course.
They remembered.
They remember me in the New York Times. And so I went to everybody the London Times, people who had reported on me many times before. And I told my story. And it was all over the world that,
While you were in Belize.
Well,
right?
yes, I was in Belize. I figured, I was under the mistaken impression that all countries have laws and that these laws will protect you. Well, what an idiot I am. There are no laws in places like Belize.
Right.
The law is the law of power.
Exactly.
The method of the law is extortion. The fundamental drive of the law is fear. And that's it.
Your neighbor gets killed. You and I theorize they bumped him off to get you.
I think they did. And this was 7 months later, and every single day I did another story. And if you look at that period, there were thousands of newspaper and TV stories about McAfee raided, dog killed.
I was reading these accounts.
Laboratory destroyed.
This poor guy.
Well, but as long as the press was looking at me, the Belizeans couldn't do anything. They couldn't just shoot me in broad daylight or hire someone because it would be too obvious, right? but my neighbor gets whacked. Well, we want to question him like we question all of the neighbors. They didn't say, we think he did it. We want to question all the neighbors, but Mr. McAfee refuses to be questioned. Duh. In the police, if they question you, they can hold you forever.
They hold you forever.
60 days at a time.
Yeah.
If they don't like your answers, another 60 days without a court order.
At what point did you say, I got to get out of Dodge here?
When it became clear that it could not be, I kept thinking, okay, I can recover this. I can eventually, the world's going to see that this was a setup, but no, absolutely not. It just kept getting worse and worse. That was difficult. I'd been in police long enough to know how the Army and the police worked, and I knew that, number one, they never worked on rainy days. I don't care what happens, okay? So if there's a checkpoint, and by the way, they had checkpoints at all the exits.
Looking for you.
Looking for me. So I knew that if it was a rainy day, they would just wave everybody through. Secondly, I've arranged to have 2 reporters from Vice come down and exit with me. So, they got to report it, and I got to have 2 Americans to make it look like we were a crowd.
Yeah.
Then I took one of my ex-girlfriend's boyfriends, who was American, took him, and myself and my girlfriend, and I was in disguise, and every checkpoint, they just waved us on through from inside their cars. Okay, so that was number one. Number two, all the borders, including the water passages, were controlled by the Coast Guard. So I arranged to have a friend of mine who looked like me and pretended to be me be arrested in southern Mexico, and had that spread over the news.
So they thought they had you?
They sent everybody up north. And so I escaped over the southern border, and everything was empty. No one was there.
And here you are. Do you feel secure here now?
No, of course I don't feel secure here.
You don't?
The police has a long arm, and I continue to talk about them. If you'll look at my blog, there's something every other day that I post that's true. I mean, for example, there is okay, I reported when I first came back that police was selling passports to Iranians and to other terrorist groups.
To get in here. Or
to get into America, not to get me, but just to get into America.
Right. And
nobody believed me. Last week, they reported in the Belizean newspaper, someone took 150 files from the government and gave it to the press of people that they were buying passports for $100,000 a pop from this one man in the government, the man that I had named previously. So I'm not making this stuff up, and it did come to light.
Was this the guy who was trying to shake you down, or somebody else?
No, it was someone else.
Okay.
But it's shocking, and what's more shocking, George, is the news never gets here to America.
No.
For example, one of our most prominent American citizens, he owns, for example, the largest Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise in America. He owns oil leases in Belize and Pakistan. He owns a food processing company. He owns the largest shrimp farm in Central America. Very well-connected man. He's a commercial pilot, extremely rich. He was one of the people in this package. There has his passport photo and all the documentation and how much money he paid. Now you have to ask yourself, why is an American citizen?
Why does he need it?
He is also of Muslim descent, by the way, and he owns banks here in America that are affiliated with Muslim terrorists, and the America's just not going to let him fly around at will. But with a Belizean passport, he goes to Belize, he flies anywhere he wants.
This is a huge story.
Well, it's out there for any. You could Google it yourself. The problem is it doesn't get reported here in the States.
And these people who bought the passports, God knows what they need them for.
Well, I know what they need them for.
Nice way to enter the country, right?
Nice way to enter the country, because what happens with the Belizean passport, you can travel throughout all of Central America and all the CARICOM countries. That is, all of the Caribbean Union. In Mexico, you just walk across like anybody else.
I would hope Homeland Security has read this story and they're jumping.
If they have, they're not doing anything about it. This man's still free and flying around.
Unbelievable.
So, in any case, it's been an interesting.
What a ride, John!
It has been a ride, sir.
What a ride! What are you doing next? What's up?
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, I formed a company to create privacy for its citizenry electronically. It's sort of a secondary internet. It's not to replace the internet, but to give you a switch. I mean, for example, if you're Googling, where to eat or general information, you don't care if anybody's watching you. Right. Usually,
you don't.
If you're sending a private message to your wife, your girlfriend, your son, If you have a private communication, it doesn't have to be a juicy communication, but just something that really doesn't need to be shared, then you switch to the
Then
private
you switch
network.
over to that. That's smart.
So hopefully it will be available in about a year. And if the NSA lets me build it, then I think it will be a boon for the American citizen.
Could they put the kibosh on it?
Well, of course, it's the government. They can do what they want. They can audit me a million times. They can, they can pass a law saying this is illegal, whatever.
Are you back to stay?
I think so. I think so. I think I would be better off trying to fix these small ills within this country than to flee from them into things which, it's out of the frying pan
Sure.
into the fire, maybe.
Well, and you got your taste on the outside.
Yes.
You see what it's like.
Yes. I have seen what it's like, firsthand.
I've got my issues with government, but there's never been a country like this.
No, there hasn't, and I will say for anybody to hear that we live in the greatest country on this planet.
People want
It's not perfect.
They want to track you. They want to read your blogs. Where do they go? How do we do this?
To whoismcafee.com.
Okay. Simple as that.
That's it.
John, as you look at the future of technology, where are we going to be 5 years from now? I mean, people are saying that your desktop computer will be passé.
Of course.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, already I am annoyed that they are purposely not putting functions in our smartphones like
that they could,
like file transfers and things, so that we still have to buy laptops and desktops,
You're
right? So really, it boils down to two things and two things only: the size of the screen and your method of inputting, the keypad.
That's right.
But keypad's becoming passé. You've got an Android phone, a current copy, a
touch screen.
Okay, so now, have you used the voice function?
Yes.
It's spectacular.
I send texts via voice.
It's spectacular.
If I want to do Google, it's voice.
Within 5 years, it will be 100% accurate. The annoying features now are the software should know where to put the periods, the commas, and everything.
It doesn't know that yet.
But however, in 5 years, I guarantee it will. We're not going to need keyboards. If we can speak, and it's faster than typing, we won't need keyboards. The other thing is screen size. I don't know how good your eyes are, but
mine's like that, and it's very small.
And trying to scroll around it is annoying.
Yeah,
that's going to be fixed in a number of ways. There are optical systems in play where you put on a pair of glasses and the screen just floats in front of you, full size. That maybe that's going to be the answer.
I love technology.
I bought a device, by the way. Where was I? Japan, somewhere recently. That put it on your desk and it displays the screen in high resolution on your wall. Small little device.
Well, that's great. We're going to come back again. John McAfee has been our guest here on Beyond Belief, but stay tuned because we'll have other programs with John right here on Beyond Belief.
Okay, I don't know when this interview was, but I know that he was arrested recently in Spain. He's being held on charges of tax evasion, waiting to be brought back to the United States, but he still does Twitter. Apparently, they allow you to have Twitter, or allow you to have a phone or whatever in Spanish jails, prisons, jail. I don't know where it is. But so he's still tweeting at this time. I just want to show you guys what I was talking about earlier when I was saying about Rusty Shackelford. Here's the YouTube video of Rusty Shackelford and this person, whoever this was, and when I say we, many of us, including Linda and myself, thought that it was John and his wife, because this is the area that they were in during the time of these videos. Now, there hasn't been a video up in about a year, which is about the time that John and his wife left that area and started heading to other places. He was in Belize for a while. He went. He had to leave this area, and he went over to Europe, into Scandinavia, and into those countries over there. Right around the same time he stopped, or right around the same time this channel stopped posting, I guess you could say. So we do believe that that Rusty Shackelford was John McAfee. Now, I noticed a lot of people in the other chat room were talking about him and just, revering him. And I want to tell you guys that he's not the person that he portrays. I mean, this man looks like he's pretty well together. He's pretty nice. He's, whatever. He's not. Okay, he's a sexual deviant. I've listened to his messages to my friend firsthand, and I lost complete and total respect for this man. And he knows a lot more about what's going on in the world of the elite. It seems that once you hit power and money, the deviations from the norm start moving into your life, and it looks like that happened to John as well. But so yeah, I have a hard time watching people praising him and saying what a great person he is when I happen to know he's not. So, and thank goodness Linda doesn't talk to him anymore. She got creeped out by the things that he was saying and the things that he was saying that he was going to do, and so she stopped all communication with him. And she kept the sound bites, she kept the messages, and they're in a couple of different places. She said, I want these in a couple of different places just in case anything happens to me. So he's not the nice person that he likes to portray himself to be. As with a lot of people, they've got this public persona and then they've got the personal persona, and it doesn't always jive with one another. This is the case. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with John. He is going for a tax evasion, but he knows a lot, and I think this tax evasion is a smokescreen. I think he's being held because he knows other things that are going on. He knows things that they don't want them to know. So, perverted nutcase knows a great deal, like it with Epstein. Absolutely, Steve. That's what I'm saying. Sorry guys, I'm reading the chat room. Yeah, absolutely, he knows a lot, and. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mr. McAfee, because he's been brought in a number of times. They tried to get him a couple of times. One was with a weapons charge down in the Bahamas, down in U.S. Virgin Islands, I think it was. It was down in the Caribbean somewhere. They brought him in. He didn't declare that he had a weapon and some stuff like that. It's pretty interesting if you guys, take a kind of research this guy, but like I said, I do believe he was Rusty Shackelford. He did leave that area of the Caribbean, Virgin Islands, that Belize, that area. He left that about the same time, about a year ago, the same time this channel stopped posting. But it has a lot of good information on this, a lot of good videos if you're interested in the goings on at Epstein's Island. They even got the FBI raid. There's a video. You'll have to search them. I found it once, but I only found it because I went and looked at all of them. I think they're right in this area right here that I'm showing in these videos, right in this area where there's an aerial shot of a man standing next to a you see these red and green vehicles. They're like little off-road vehicles here. And there was a person standing next to this talking to another person who was going the opposite direction. They were standing outside of their vehicles and did a flyover. Looked exactly like Epstein. And this was after he was supposedly dead. Exactly like him, wearing the same polo shirts. You guys, if you followed when I covered Epstein, I went into what he wears. The man only wears a certain polo shirt. And he has like hundreds of them, and he changes them out like 4 or 5 times a day per his staff that work there. We learned a lot of things during during that time. Unfortunately, those videos aren't available anymore because they were taken out when our channel was terminated. But you can still find the information. We find the information. We don't go to secret places to find them. If you dig hard enough, you can find them. But it would be in these videos right here that I'm showing. It would have been after his death that we found it. But it's definitely, they're showing him standing next to, like I said, one of these little off-road vehicles. And he looked up at the drone. He looked up at it. So, all right. This is going to stay up, Charity, for as long as I hope. Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. I plan on keeping it up. YouTube may have other things. I don't know. But Yes. All right, guys. I'm going to end this for now. Don't know when we'll be back. Like I said, I'm doing better. My health is doing much better. I'm only down to 1 time a week. Starting this week, I'll be on Wednesday that I go for dialysis. So it'll be 1 time a week. Not this Friday coming up, but the following Friday, Dave and I will be leaving. No, actually, I take that back. 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Sunday, we'll be leaving for Portland. We have to drive because Dave is still having procedures done to his eye. 2 weeks ago, he had more gas put in his retina, and now this coming Tuesday, has to go for another. They're going to do a laser procedure, so he can't fly. Not only that, he's claustrophobic. But we're going to drive out to Portland. Going to have a chance to see quite a few things. We're going to go the Salt Lake City way on the way there, and then up through the Dakotas on the way back. I'm going to hopefully get to see quite a few people. I have a friend over there, Amber, who is one of my admins on my Facebook. Hopefully I'm going to get to see her. I'm going to get to see Derek, Derek and his wife. And if anybody else, if you're listening, if you are in the Portland, Vancouver, Washington area, because that's where I'll be, give us a shout, and we would be more than happy to meet up with you and have coffee. So, all right, guys. I'm sure we'll be back in the meantime. I do have another project in the making. I was visiting my grandchildren for the last week up in New York State, and I got to meet personally with my cousin, Brandon Stickney, who I have interviewed several times. He's the one that wrote the unauthorized biography of Timothy McVeigh, and he also wrote The 5 People You Meet in Prison. I interviewed him for both of those. You guys are probably aware of who I'm talking about, Brandon. I had a chance. We met on Thursday, and we spent the whole day catching up, talking, and putting out a plan to hopefully bring a show to the radio. And we're talking a real radio station. We're not talking about, blog talk or anything. But we're in the makings of doing that. So I will let you guys know. We may start it over here on YouTube to get an audience and then move it over. We're not sure what we're going to do. But that is in the works too. So, yes, I'll be careful in Portland. Yes. We were probably, we're going to stay at a kind of on the outskirts. We have a place where we're going to stay. My son's up in Vancouver. So. All right, guys. I will see you next time. Until then, eyes open. No fear.